Okay, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We glorify your holy name for loving us. We give you praise because we have woke up and we are able to see the new sun, the new day, Lord. We give you praise, we give you glory. Lord, today we thank you for this day that we have reached. We thank you because our plans have been granted to pass, Lord. For you have special plans for us, but you have enabled us to reach this day, the day of the World Summit, the world changing day, Ngonzi Summit. Lord, I pray that everything we discuss today here and everything we hear, everything we put into our minds, let it be a changing word, O Heavenly Father. We pray for your special intervention for us in everything we're planning to say, everything we're planning to hear, everything we're planning to ask. Dear Lord, be with us. Guide us and protect us. We thank you because you have answered our prayers. We pray for all the facilitators, Lord, as well. You speak through them so they can give us the best for us. We thank you because you have heard our prayers and have made our prayer through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the
Amen.
Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. So, first of all, before we go on, thank you so much, Charles, for that wonderful prayer. So, you guys, I need to tell you something small. Remember, you don't have to put on your video if you don't want to. Yeah. So you can turn off your video so that you can be able to have better network. In case you can't hear anything, send it in the chat. Please communicate in the chat that you can't hear the speaker, or the speaker should increase their volume or something. We are going to use the chat to ask questions. So in case you want to ask any questions, feel free to send them in the chat or raise your hand after the session. Is that okay? Yes. So anyway, we're going to get into session, but we're going to give Ngonzi Elizabeth some minutes to just give us the do's and don'ts of this meeting.
Yeah, hello guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for time. I see the Wazales, Mirembe, Richard, Bridget, Jacqueline Ihunde, Brian Lambert, Trisha, Jude, Mogisa, Tugume. Yeah, and Mujaidu, who was the first person to come in. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for keeping time. And today we are believing that it's going to be an amazing day. Please be hopeful and know it, because we are having amazing people. So I would like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Elizabeth Ngonzi Mugisa, Mrs. And Ngonzi Summit is mainly to encourage us to build healthy relationships, because we all know without romantic relationships, we are really headed somewhere else. So the Ngonzi Summit is going to help us. We're going to listen to amazing people. We have facilitators like Jude Okongo, who is talking about communication and prayer, which is very key for most of us, for all of us actually. Because if you communicate the wrong people, the wrong things, and the wrong things be heard by your partner, you're definitely in a pit, and a big one. We have an amazing lady, Fausta Oringa, Mrs., who is going to take us through the things we need to know before we say I do. These days, we are just jumping into things because things are scientific. We are jumping into weddings and we find ourselves in fixes. And divorce rate is increasing, and people are marrying the wrong people and ending up swapping partners after honeymoon and all this. So we're going to listen to her. We have Dr. Mugaga Nicholas, who is going to give us the medical aspects of our relationships, which is something we don't take so serious, yet it affects us in the long run. We have Richard Mukasa Mugambwa, who is going to give us a rich, in-depth teaching about sex in this century. Guys, you know, sex is amazing for those who have had it. For those who don't, please, I know you're imagining lots of things. So today is a time we are going to have fun. We are going to enjoy ourselves. And then myself, I'll be handling the ladies on the other side with the sex topic. So if you have any friends that you want to attend today, it's not too late. Please text the link to them. If you don't have it, just communicate in the chat, and then we can post it there. Yeah, the rules are very simple and basic. Let's try our level best to remain on mute all the time so that we don't have a lot of conflicts. Of course, this is technology. Please be very ready and alert to forgive any technical glitches. But we are going to try our best, and we believe God is with us. The second rule is try to keep your video off, not to consume your own data and MBs. But if you can put, but if not, it's not really necessary. You can just listen. And if you're speaking or you've been asked a question or you're a facilitator, then it's mandatory you put your video so that we connect with you a little bit more. Yeah, the last rule is that let's use the chat. I don't know if we all know where the chat is. I'm just going to share my screen now. I'm going to share my screen so that I show you where the chat is in case you don't know where it could be. Okay, that's my WhatsApp, forgive it. Yeah, do you see up here? It's still showing WhatsApp, yeah. Okay. Okay, that will be done later. Let me first stop this. Yeah, but if you look down on your Zoom, there are things like mute, stop video, security, participants, and then chat. You click on that chat, then your chat will come in the side. Let's communicate in the chat. There are people, we have an amazing team that's listening to everything you're saying in the chat. All your questions, all your appreciations, concerns of any sort, please post them there. Let's try to be positive as possible. There's no expert here whatsoever. We are just sharing our experiences and our knowledge with each other. So contributions, post in the chat. So I think that's it from me. We shall keep jazzing as time goes on, but please feel at home, feel very relaxed, and ask any forms of questions. There's no judgment here. We are all here to learn. Thank you. That's it. Bye. Back to you, MC.
Thank you so much, Ngonzi Elizabeth. Yes, and this is the main organizer of the show. And you guys, by the way, most of the things that you're going to hear here, in case you want to rehear them, check her YouTube channel. It's Ngonzi, Liz Ngonzi. We are going to share the name of the YouTube channel in the chat so that you guys can be able to check it out. So right about now, it is exactly, we're on time. So we're going to have our first speaker, the amazing Okongo Jude. Is going to be speaking to us about communication and prayer in our relationships, which is very key. Do you guys agree that it's very key? Do you guys pray in your relationships? Yeah, so we're going to have Jude Okongo, who is going to be speaking to us about communication. And by the way, if you have any questions that you want him to, to answer during the communication, please send them in the chat, because we don't want you to go away without receiving the information that you came for. So he has something prepared for us already, but we need to know if that's exactly what you want. Do you have any expectations from this summit? Do you have any limitations here and there? Please feel free to share them in the chat, okay? Yeah, so we are going to have Jude Okongo starting, I think, right about now. And the people who are still joining, welcome. So welcome and feel at home. We're just starting right now.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not certain whether you want to see me, but very shortly that will be possible. Is it possible to share, Claire, is it possible to share my presentation? I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to have that after this introduction. There I am. My name is Jude. Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you very much, Liz, and all the organizing committee members. I am excited to be here. I am speaking from Jinja. I live in Kampala, but I'm on my way to Tororo, where the wise men come from. I am married to one wife and 2 children. I'm not certain whether we have stopped, but so far we have communicated that we'll give a break. I'm excited to be part of this presentation, and yes, thank you very much, Claire. Technology makes everything very, very simple. I'm excited to be part of this, and I hope that this presentation blesses someone. We're going to share about so many things. My prayer is that you pick some that will work for you and challenge some that you think are not realistic, so that together we can learn. As I present, I am also a learner because I believe that no one is 100% a good communicator, but we keep learning on the way. There's no school we are going to go to. So I also want to begin by saying that communication is just one of the pillars of a relationship. You might need to seek out the other pillars that will be discussed by other presenters and even somewhere else. So for the sake of having a good network, I am going to switch off my video, but the presentation is going to be visible to everyone. And I think Claire will help me to move to the next, to the different slides whenever there is need. I just want to promise that this is going to be interactive, and your way of communicating is going to be by texting. We might not have everyone talk, but through the chat, you can answer some of the questions that I'll be asking, or you can give your opinion or ask questions in the course of the presentation. I hope that this takes less than 30 minutes so that we can have the other remaining time to ask questions, to react, and to provide feedback. So thank you very much. Can we go to the next slide, Claire? So we have a very brief objective for this session, what I call my expectations. You could be having yours, but I hope that by the end of this session, you shall be able to understand the importance of communication in a relationship. A relationship is bold for a reason. Two, I hope you'll be able to describe the relationship between vertical and horizontal communication. We'll discuss more about that. And then three, I hope that we shall be able to recognize the areas, the different areas in our relationships that are difficult to discuss. You know, communication is broad, but also there are some aspects about our life that could be very difficult to discuss with your partner. So what are those key areas and what are we going to do about it? And then four, we hope that by the end of this session, we'll be able to have improved communication in our relationships. Because the ultimate goal for this presentation is really to have all this improved. There's an image here, and I'm just asking ourselves, what do you see? Let's begin with image one. If I interpret this, some of us did geography in O level, and even A level, photographic interpretation. So what do you see in picture one? And I propose that to go to the chat and present what we see. You can just type one word, two words, not a long sentence. And you have about 2 minutes to type that. Let's say man trying to speak to the lady and resolve something. Okay. Liz says, I see a man and a woman. Anyone else? What do you see? Charles sees a woman. Thank you, Charles. Anyone else? Bright says, I think this is chaos in the making. Eh? Bridget says, seems to be stressed up. Thank you, Concepta. A man calming a woman down. Thank you. The Tagoya said the guy seems to have annoyed the lady. Okay, let's go to. Okay, to explain things.
Sorry, Jude, you were breaking that last sentence. I didn't hear it.
Sorry, I was saying. Okay, one more comment has come. Ronald Bazari says communication between a man and a woman. That's what he sees. Okay, thank you. Let's go to image 2. What do you see? If you have to describe this just in one word. This one is interesting. Claire says male ego, female tantrum. Lambert says woman getting. Okay. The Tagoya said the guy is fed up. The man has had enough. Okay, can you get 2 more? The woman is fighting about something and the guy is not caring. Okay. The man's pride is displayed. This Rebecca. The Tagoyas again said the woman seems to be wrong with accusing the man. And many others. Okay. Thank you. The bottom line is that, okay, one last one. Image 1, the woman is depressed and the husband is listening carefully. Image 2, the woman is expressing her concerns, but the man seems not to care. Okay. Thank you very much for your contributions. The bottom line is that both of these images speak about communication, and it's about the different aspects of communication. You can see in image 1, someone is caring, like Rebecca said. In image 2, the man is completely in his own world, and the woman, like someone said, is trying to get the hell out of the guy. People have talked about ego, we have talked about care, we have talked about concern, all these aspects of communication in our relationships that need to be taken care of. It's very important to note that communication is not just about the words. And you see, we seem to know that these guys have communicated even without hearing any words from them. Okay. So Claire, take us to the next slide. Okay. We all know that it's common knowledge that communication is about sending and receiving message. But here we're talking about communication in a relationship. And what is a relationship? Maybe it is interesting to know what a relationship is from you guys. So quickly, let's go back to our chat. What is a relationship? One of the challenges that you face is that me, I'm I am a teacher, so I like engaging. So what is our understanding of communication? We take about 5 minutes on this. Again, you can use the chat. Just brief understanding. So about relationship, not communication. Relationship. Communication already discussed, is about sending and receiving messages. Just in 2 minutes. This says relationship is about a man and woman coexisting for a mutual benefit. Okay, thank you. Okay, seems this one's a tough question. We all know what communication is, but to put it in words sometimes is difficult. But simply put, communication is about the connectedness. I mean, relationship is about the connectedness between two or more people. I see more answers have now come. A connection between two people, yes. Something sometimes bi-directional and at times unidirectional, but it's where people sin. Okay. A relationship is a mechanism of two or more people coexisting physically, emotionally, and in other forms. Then on it says a mutual understanding between two or more people. Okay, and many others. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I've seen your comment. But basically, communication is about the connectedness we have with people. I don't want to narrow down now to between the two people because that's where we are going. But simply put, a relationship is the connectedness. And you can use that connectedness to understand how deep this relationship is. And sometimes this can also help us to understand, are we actually related? Are we connected? Do we have a meeting point before we even start communicating? Because we are talking about communication in a relationship. Now, there are different types of relationships. We have relationships at workplace, we have relationships with our partners, we have relationships with our relatives, with friends. Those who love football, they have relationships even with people in Europe that have never met, they've never seen, but they connect to them, etc. But for this particular workshop, we are talking about a relationship between two people who have chosen each other to come together and understand each other. Now, I know that there are some of us who are already dating, there are some of us who are not yet dating, but there are some of us who are married, and I want to discuss relationships in that aspect. So, having known that relationships are about the connections that we have, I would like us to dive into what actually communication in relationship is. Once we talk about communication in relationships, we are talking about the connectedness between you who wants to communicate, you who wants to send and receive message, and the other person, the other side. But also we are talking about communication with God. Why? Someone might ask, but I am relating with this person. Why do you bring God in all these things? You see, we are human beings, and we believe that we are uniquely made in the image of God, and we are for God. So the first communication that you can ever think of is the communication, the connectedness we have with God, because we have a relationship with him, and therefore we must communicate. If we don't communicate, this relationship loses meaning. You cannot have God, then we must communicate, we must connect to him through prayer. And that is what we call the vertical dimension of communication. Okay? And to communicate to God in this vertical dimension, there are different aspects, like we have just seen. The first one is personal prayer. You cannot have couple prayer or partner prayer without personal prayer. I don't know whether that makes sense, but you have to be fine with yourself. You have to be fine with God before you seek to be fine with someone you're relating with. So it is very, very important that our communication, our personal communication with God is very fine, as you can see in 1 Thessalonians 5:16 to 18. I'm not sure we can project that now, but I can just read from here. That verse says, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. It doesn't tell us to pray in certain times, it tells us to pray always and also give thanks. So even when we communicate to God, by the way, it is very important for us to remember that we are sending and receiving. So you don't just go and keep sending without receiving. So you're telling God all these requests, all these things, all these praises, but what is he telling you? And what are the mechanisms that you have for listening to God in your communication with him? Okay. You also have a couple prayers. This can be found in Matthew 18:19 to 20. As you pray with yourself to God, you also need to create time as the two people are communicating, who are relating, also to pray to God. And in this prayer, the last aspect of it is really mutual forgiveness. It is very important for us to be right with God before we think about going to him to ask for anything. The Bible tells us if you have any issues with your brother and you're about to give your offering at the altar, first put it down, run back, sort out the things that you have before you finally come back and offer your sacrifice. So it is very important for us to have to forgive each other, forgive ourselves first, and then forgive the other person. Why do you talk about forgiveness? It's because this person you're relating with is a human being. And by matter of being a human being, we're all sinners. Someone talked about that actually earlier on when we were talking about relationships. A relationship is really a connectedness, the connectedness between two sinners. So every time you're going to hurt each other, and therefore we must be willing to forgive. Forgive self, but also forgive others. So why do we put God in our communication? Most of the time, if both couples are praying to God, then the gap between them narrows down, and therefore the connectedness increases. But if you confront each other with communication, the gap is going to widen because you are human beings. So to give a good path, to present as a good path in communication, if both of us are connecting to God well through communication, through prayer, in this case, then we can connect well. At the bottom, you can see this, the image we are talking about here, where God is up. Then you have a husband on the left and wife on the right. So basically, when you are further from God, the distance between husband and wife increases. When you are closer to God, the distance between us narrows down. And you can see we can have a meeting point where God is. You can just draw a line up to the base of this, and then we can have a converging point between husband and wife, or between girlfriend and boyfriend, for those who are still dating. So it is therefore very, very important for us to remain connected to God in our efforts to relate, in our efforts to communicate with each other. Like you saw in the image we earlier on discussed, there are verbal and non-verbal aspects of communication. That's why you're able to see what the man was trying to say, or what the man is and what the woman is, without necessarily seeing any caption in those images. So to be specific, our verbal aspects of communication accounts for very less. I can talk and talk and talk, but if my body language is not saying the same, if my voice is not saying the same, then I am wasting time. People normally are going to take my body language, they're going to take the non-verbal aspect of the communication. And that's why normally people say that, they're more likely to do what you do and not what you say. Why? Because what you do says everything about you. What you say can only accompany what you are doing. But if what you're saying is not accompanying your body language, then you are as good as someone who has not said anything. In fact, you end up more confusing. And that's why sometimes people say that which is wrong actually. But sometimes some people say, you know what? When a woman says no, she means yes. Why? Maybe they're saying the body language. You're saying no, but the voice is really not the voice of a no. The voice is not firm enough to actually mean that it is a no. Or maybe you're saying yes and you're doing something opposite what yes actually means. So it's very important for us to take care of the non-verbal aspect of our communication. And the non-verbal aspect actually includes even the distance. What is the distance between you and the person you're communicating to? We'll discuss this further when it comes to issues to do with the long distance relationship. So let me leave this at that for now. Then the horizontal aspect of our communication, we all know this. It's all about empathy, active listening, sharing compliments, transparency, and quality time together. I'll just make a brief comment here about sharing compliments because the other ones we shall find as we continue with this discussion. And this is common with us, the guys. Sometimes we don't observe those small things that our ladies do, and we end up annoying them. Someone has changed hairstyle, someone has had a makeup that made their nails, that made an effort to cook a special meal on a certain day, and we don't recognize all these things. That annoys them, and that, for lack of better word, that sucks. You do all these things and the guy doesn't recognize. It's rare that we guys just need compliments, but we are all human beings. So it's very important for us as men, I'm not talking to men specifically, to recognize those small things. They are not small. Sometimes the smallest of things are actually the things that cause us problems in relationships, in marriages. So let's take time to recognize those small things, the small changes that has happened in the lives of our friends, our spouses, our partners, and take time to appreciate them because they put a lot of effort in making that. Transparency goes with consistency, because if you're transparent, then you're not going to contradict yourself. And then quality time. We'll discuss some of that somewhere else. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So we talked about this earlier. Communication being sending and receiving a message. So when we talk about sending a message, it's about willingness to share with our spouses the things that are part of our everyday life, big or small. I said earlier that the things that cause us trouble most of the time are the small things that we thought is not important. For example, I'll just give to those who are married. You go to office and for some reason, maybe tip was on your shirt or you fall and the shirt is dirty and you must change. You go to the nearby shop, you buy a t-shirt, you put on, abandon the shirt or whatever happens to it. In the evening, you go back home with a new shirt or a new t-shirt actually. And then your wife asks, where did you get this shirt? What do you say? Because the immediate thought that could come is that you went somewhere else and changed the shirt. But honestly, something happened and you crossed the road, bought a shirt, and went home. So if you had communicated earlier on when you're going to buy that shirt, there wouldn't have been even a question about where you found the shirt. So some of the small things we think are small actually are not small, because later they might cause you problems. I already talked about small things like changing the nail, like changing hairstyle. They are really not small. So it's very, very important for you to acknowledge this, and then you communicate throughout what happens in your life. Communicate, but also be willing to receive, which is our second point. Receiving information or message in communication about the willingness and ability to listen, to love your spouse, is to listen to him or her respectively and also prudently. I'll not take much time on this. I underline the word here, listen. And later we're going to talk about what we mean by active listening. Because in communication, sometimes you make more sense when you speak less and listen more. In fact, someone was saying that is the very reason why we have one mouth and two ears, that we speak less and listen more. And I'll take you back to the second image we had up there. Is it possible that that lady had said a little bit much more than she was supposed to say, and the man was no longer interested in listening? Is it possible that the man was just not interested in listening whatsoever? And those are the questions that, as we discuss, we should be asking ourselves. Do I listen in our relationships? Do I listen in my marriage? Or I am the one who talks and I expect the other ones only to listen? So it's very, very important for us to keep asking ourselves some of these questions. So the underlying word in sending a message is about being open to your everyday happenings in your life. In receiving message, the bottom line is active listening. And here we're saying that both in sending and receiving, couples must be honest. Don't communicate lies, or don't pretend to be listening, because the other person will know. The other person will definitely know if you're not listening actively. Okay? So let's just have this and maybe communicate a bit. How do you know that someone is listening to you? And again, you can use these images to help us. Aware that active listening is key to our successful communication. How do you know that someone is listening to you? In just 2 minutes, let's go to the chat again and discuss this. By coming here, eye contact, please, thank you. Through their facial expression, Baza says, thank you. Brian says, when she doesn't repeat the same mistake I warned her about. Thank you. Anyone else? How do you know someone is listening to you? Eye contact and responses they give. Thank you, Alba. When they slow down the speech and temper. Thank you, Claire, and many others. So it is very important for us to practice active listening, and active listening is a skill. Active listening is a skill that takes time to be learned. You don't just wake up and now you say, I'm an active listener. It takes time to build this skill. And like you can see in image 1, I think there's an aspect of communication, and the body language really shows that there's connectedness and people are listening. Meanwhile, in image 2, I don't know who's listening here, but to me, it looks like no one is listening. Both are talking. Now, the challenge with both of us talking is that there's no one listening. And yet we said communication is about sending and receiving. So if both of us are talking, then who's listening? Very important. Okay. Next slide, please. So these are the different aspects of active listening that we need to take care of in our own relationships. One is to listen to understand. There are people who listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. You are talking, before you finish, they're already talking. They're already answering what we have not yet said, you know. But in relationships, we must listen to understand. And after understanding, then we can respond when the person has completed whatever they wanted to tell us. The challenge with listening to respond is that you're not valuing the contribution of the other person. So we must listen to understand. Two, we need to ask deeper questions. That shows that you have understood. And three, avoid interruptions. Like I just said this, you are talking before you even finish, before you even go to the point, someone is already answering. And you're asking, what are they actually answering? If you have not even mentioned the point. Then take care of our non-verbal clues. There are times you're talking to someone. I'll give you an example of the guys. Maybe the guy is a Liverpool fan, and you know, Liverpool is playing Aston Villa, and it is 6-2 in favor of Aston Villa, and the guy is a Liverpool fan. You just need to listen and say, you know what, this guy is not in the mood of listening to me right now. All I can do is to console him about the big loss and move on. So what is the non-verbal clues of the other person telling you? Are they listening? Are they troubled? Because it's not about us who are speaking. Yeah? Because you remember we said this is about connectedness of the two people. So if you're really connected to the other person, then you must take care of his body language and say, you know what, this person is not about to listen to me right now. Let me schedule this for another time. And sometimes it's important to practice silence. I saw in the chat someone was saying that sometimes even silence does not help at all. But the bottom line is, there are times when we just have to keep quiet and listen. There are times when we just have to give the other person their space. And then we need to withhold judgment. We are not the ones to judge. Once you judge the person, then you're not going to be willing to listen to him or her with an open heart. It doesn't help to judge. Reason even before you give him fair hearing. So let's listen to the other person with openness and with kindness and with love. In all active listening, we need to care for facial expression. When you listen to someone, you need to respond. It can be verbally by saying some words of affirmation. It can also be non-verbal by maybe nodding your head so that the person actually knows that you're listening to them. Bottom line is you must face the person you're talking to if what you're talking about is actually very serious and you're honest about it. Next slide, Claire. Thank you. Now, this is a serious discussion, but we might not have time to discuss it. We can see this. I'll not go through the different ways of sending the message. We all know that. But I wanted to to ask a question here. And the question is, can females make the first move? I know this is a very hot topic, but worth sharing. Can females make the first move in a relationship? I'm talking about now male and female. You probably want to get married and this guy is very slow to act. Can you make the first move and tell him, guy, you're wasting time. I've been with you for this while and you're not saying anything. Can you say something? Is it right? Let's go to the chat. We'll collect those views. Someone says, I like this part. Someone says, I think it's possible. Lambert says, I am dead. First move. Claire says, I think traditionally it's not right, but. Okay. Claire says sometimes the guy is slow. I therefore guess you make the first move. Liz says females can give signals, non-verbal communication. Yes, we have just talked about that. Brian says no, they can only say you look like you have. They can say you look like you have many girlfriends. when she's more interested. Okay. I'm enjoying this feedback. We'll go there. My own opinion is that most of the times, actually, ladies make the first move. Just that they don't talk, they use the verbal communication. And most of the times, men follow those signals and finally make the move. Because guys might agree with me, one of the most depressing things is that you make the move and the woman says no. Of course, sometimes they say no, but later things move on, and then finally you are there. I think for me, my wife is still waiting actually for my proposal, but we are married because I didn't do it. So it's very important for us to see those signals. A woman might not tell you they love you at first sight, or they will not make the first move verbally, but they're all indications that will show you that actually, if I make this move, she will say yes. So guys, whereas traditionally it's not something that is acceptable, but even within the traditions, these things used to happen. Rarely do you find a man who goes to a woman who has completely not shown any signal that something can happen between them. So to me, I think it's right. You can make the move. Most times, they are non-verbal communication techniques that women follow, but also you can make those non-verbal techniques, and the man is still dumb, is not understanding anything. What you do, I don't know in that case, but at least you have done your part. You have made the move. If you like someone, why not? And that's my opinion. You don't need to die in your own movie. If you like someone, show it. Show it really. Okay. So all this we are talking about here can help us with communication. Have your message very clear. The message must be correct. Make it complete. Don't say things and you don't complete. You can't go and start proposing and you're like, I really wanted to tell you something, but anyway, time has passed. Let us meet again. Complete the message. Be precise. Be reliable. Be mindful of the other person you're talking to. We talked about this. Take care of the person too. Can we go to the next slide? Now, this is the most difficult thing in communication, giving feedback. There's some feedback that is very rare to take, very difficult to take, but you must give it anyway. In this, we normally sometimes call it positive criticism, because we are connected, therefore we share everything. And once you share everything, it can't be that every time things are positive. There are sometimes when things are not going to be positive. So if things are not right, how do you tell the other person that, you know what? No, I didn't like this. So there are 4 ways of saying different things. We have feedback that is constructively positive. We have feedback that is constructively negative. And we have feedback that is mindlessly positive. I would say destructively positive, and those that are destructively negative. And I would like that we concentrate our energies on the bottom line, the green area. Constructively positive and constructively negative. And we're just giving here examples. But in our relationship, some of those things. That's why you asked at the beginning, what are some of those things that are very difficult to discuss in your relationships, in your marriages? And you can use this technique to discuss those things. Because of the different varieties of different categories we are dealing with in this, we're not going to deep issues to do with the specifics of your marriage, but within you, you know what is difficult to communicate, what is easy to communicate. Now, this chart is to enable us to communicate some of those difficult parts. Constructive positive is okay. All of us can do that. You can start with, you can use statements like, this is good because. Now, the catchphrase here is because. You can't just say this is good and you end there. What is good? Why is it good? So that maybe you give a person a chance to continue that or to repeat that. I like that you, then you add on. I like that you give me feedback. I like that you're positive. I like that you're hardworking, etc. When you go to constructively negative, again, you need to give the person the reason why you don't like something. This is bad because I think you'd have done better in this area. I think you would have told me this, I didn't like that you did this. I didn't like that, etc. When you go to negative feedback, the ones you should avoid, there's sometimes when we give people feedback and it really comes out bad. Let me just use a feedback of someone in a relationship. It could actually be possible that the order of your partner's, the order coming from your partner's mouth is really bad. You can easily tell him, you know what? Today your mouth is really smelling. You know? How did you even get there? But I believe there could be a better way of telling this. The same person sending the same message in a different way. So if you said this is bad, this sucks, this is not acceptable in this home, you know, don't do that. They don't see, and the short rude words does not send a clear signal to the other person. The person might just think you're hating them, you don't appreciate them, and anything like that. But within us, you might find a loving way of telling someone the same message, but in a way that they are going to appreciate. Because once you use words like this is bad, this sucks, the other person is going to go on the offensive to defend themselves. Okay. So constructive feedback or positive criticism should be able to allow us to communicate some of those difficult things in our marriages, in our relationships, that otherwise we would be shy about talking about, or would not be able to bring out to our partners. Well, next slide, please. Claire, yes, thank you. Someone one time said that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Basically, for every new beginning, it means something is ending. And therefore, because we started this relationship, it is possible that we can end it, especially in with those who are not yet married. Why do we enter relationships? We enter relationships to study the other person, to know them, and actually get to see if we can live together for the rest of our lives. Because once you get married, that's the end of it. So till death do us part. And I think someone first is going to talk about those things you need to know before you say I do. Because once you say I do, it's a you have reached a point of no return. But once you are still relating, you can say we have reached the point where one has got to walk away. Now, what is that point and how do you know it? How do you know that it's actually time to walk away? That's a long discussion for another day. But the bottom line is that once you choose to say this is ending, it is important to end in a good way. Because we are human beings, we still need each other just for the fact that we are human beings. So if you fight while ending, it might not be good for you. There's a saying that I have forgotten to say it, but they're saying that you get to know the person more at the point of breaking away than all the times that you have been with the person. So this one moment of breaking away can make you know this person much more than the 2 years you have spent together. So in our efforts to say this is not workable. Now, the other thing I want to comment about is that sometimes people enter relationships with the mind that they think that sacrilege, you start with marriage and then you start relating. That is sometimes disastrous. You relate, then you marry. But if you marry, then you start relating, then life might be very challenging. So it is very important that we relate and then we marry. So one, you have to end this relationship as soon as you know it can't go on. And why? Because you don't need to waste each other's time. If you know this can't go on, end it. But if you know there are many things that are keeping you together, as opposed to those that are keeping you away, then you work on the other small things, the small issues you can work on, and then you you go on. And then two, break up and break off in person, be physical. Break up is different. Okay, break up is the actual breaking up. Breaking off is stopping to do the certain things that you used to do together because you are related. Once you break up, why do you continue doing the things that you used to do when you're still related? That sends another signal. So once you break up, you break off, and just to be physical. Then be clear and certain about your reasons. You must give the other person the reason. When we are breaking up, why? So that you both learn. He or she learns, but you also learn. So that you don't take the same thing to the next relationship. Then really don't try to make the other person feel bad. Say, you know what, I am done, was really contributing in all this. Now that I am gone, you are finished. That's not a good way to end. You're ending while acknowledging that both of us are contributing this relationship. Now that you're ending, both of us are going to be missing each other, especially our contributions, but we break up in a good way. You go happy, I go happy. Otherwise, I want to say that no one is perfect in this communication, but it's a daily effort to make sure that you're communicating and you're communicating well. And also, it's a daily effort to make sure that we remain connected so that we keep our connection to each other in harmony. Otherwise, thank you very much. I have taken note of all your chats and will have some of those shared and answered either here or in the YouTube that Claire talked about earlier on. Thank you very much. A nice meeting.
Thank you so much, Jude. Thank you. This has been so enriching. And we welcome all the people who joined midway sessions. Do not worry, you're going to catch up. We've just had the first speaker. Okay, so just settle in, feel at home. We are using chat to answer the questions that the different facilitators are going to be asking, and also to ask questions about the session, the questions that you want answered. So Jude has managed to keep time, and the remaining minutes that we're going to have are going to be for a Q&A about specifically communication and the things that he has shared. So some people asked questions in the chat. So we're going to take 4 questions from the chat and only 1 question from someone who wants to raise up their hand. So those are going to be 5 questions, which is going to answer just before we have our next person. Okay?
Yes,
So if you have any question, raise your hand. Yeah, so we're going to have Mugisa reading for us the questions from the chat.
Jude,
yes.
Some questions came up, and one of the first one was, how do you handle long distance relationships and communication? And the second one is, do we have to pray together always? Can't I always do my thing alone? Because I personally like undercover of praying alone. That is how the question came up. And then other question was, someone needed more clarification on non-verbal communication, like how do you send out, probably how do you send out more of these signals, like, or how do you interpret more of those non-verbal signals in communication? Yes, so for now, those are the questions that came up that I could track in the chat. Maybe you can have a go at them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. One, long distance relationship. This is difficult, whether just relating or actually already married. But I acknowledge the challenges that come with it. I think one, we have got to be honest. Honest to ourselves in a way that we acknowledge the fact that you're already in a long distance relationship and therefore find how to deal with it. Having said that, I think there are a few things you can do. One is create a routine. Sometimes when in long distance relationships, in places with different time zones, this one is waking up, the other one is going to sleep. This one is going to sleep, the other one is waking up. It is my lunchtime, the other person's normal work hours. So it's very important to acknowledge those differences and work towards creating a routine. Like, at about this time, we are going to be communicating. At about this time, the other person will be sleeping. At about this time, we'll be talking about ABCD. And then two, it is important to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. I don't know best I can interpret that, but I'll just give an example. If my work involves the training, and I know that for all the time that I'll be in class or be in the training session, I can't pick a call. Then before I enter that training session or before I enter class, I need to notice the other person. You know what? I am entering class, especially if that class is not in the ordinary routine that I normally use. So if this person normally talks to me and they know I'm free at 6, and then today at 6 I'm going to be busy, then I should tell them in advance that at 6 I'll be busy. And then 3, we need to manage our own expectations in terms of what do you actually want and can expect in this relationship and from this person. Because long distance relationship comes with sometimes it comes with emotional and physical disconnect. And yet we say relationships are about the connectedness. So at the back of our mind, we need to keep asking ourselves, what keeps us connected in this relationship? And to me, communication is just one of them. So we need to find out what are the other things that keep us connected. And we invest time and resources on building those other things that keep us connected. Some of them could be our values. It could be the fact that we have decided to get married. It could be the fact that we really connect to each other and many other things. So communication is just one of those pillars that will keep this relationship together. And finally, it is important that we be trustworthy. I don't know which other word I can use. But if this person trusts you, then they will have no reason to doubt you when you tell them you're in class, or when you tell them you're in a meeting, or when you tell them you're sleeping. So you need to build that trust. And sometimes this trust is built before the relationship actually becomes long distance. Because I want to believe that this long distance relationship started as a long distance. At one point, we're close to each other, and we know the things that each of us are capable of doing. So if you didn't trust each other when you're physically relating, you're unlikely to trust each other when you're in a long distance now. So it's very important to build that trust before we even think about this long distance relationship. Okay. And then someone asked, why is it important to pray together? You know, we've talked about 3 different categories of prayer, actually 2. The personal prayer and then the couple prayer. Now, this personal prayer, the couple prayer does not work in place of personal prayer. Personal prayer still applies, but also this couple prayer is very important. Why? For those who are married, you have been declared, and indeed, we are one. We are 2 people, but living as one. We are connected. We share so many things in common. But also as a couple, you don't want, I'll give you an example of those who are married. We have personal prayers. I am praying that we build a house. The other person is praying that we buy a car. And we're supposed to be one. Whose prayer will God answer? The one of building a house or the one of buying a car? So when you have joint prayers, you agree as a couple that this is what we want. You agree as partners that this is, maybe you are praying to get married 2 years from now. Maybe you're praying to do this. So having a couple prayer gives us an opportunity to present our needs to God in unison, that we agree that this is what we want and therefore we are taking it as a couple. So it is important. Have your personal prayers. Yes, you like your silent prayer somewhere in the corner, or even when you're in office, but later in the evening or anytime that you agree, you sit and just have the prayer. Now, couple prayer might not even mean that you're physically together. They also might not be physically together, but they can still have couple prayer. It could be you agree at a certain time that this time you're praying together. You maybe 3 p.m., whether you're in office or at home, both of you are in different offices, but you can still pray together and God will answer your prayers. So you can still continue with your personal prayers, but at a higher level, make that altar work as a family, as a couple. In fact, for those who are having families and the kids are grown up, or you have other family members at your home, there's also family prayer. Then you add the third component. You have personal prayer, you have couple prayer, but also you have family prayer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Jude, for answering. And we had one question from the people who raised up their hand. So, Etima, Monica, can you unmute yourself and ask the question? Etima, Monica, can you hear me?
Yes, Claire. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the organizers and Jude for the wonderful presentation. There's something you touched a bit, which I think people have to explore on. It's like those difficult areas to communicate to your friend, your spouse. You mentioned something about bad breath, but as I grew in marriage, you find, and as I listen to different couples, there are areas which are difficult to communicate. For example, the one you mentioned, and then things like sometimes sickness, sometimes it's maybe somebody is not bathing or is very disorganized in the bedroom. So you find some people cannot say it, but when they're in the counseling room or when they are now at the point of breaking, they what? That's when they bring it up that you, I remember there was one where the man just said, why do you leave your underwears everywhere? And we are three of us in the room. So in my mind, I was like, did you ever tell her? Did you ever tell her that this disorganizes you? So as we grow, as we really experience this love together, I think those are skills we need to get. How do I communicate difficult areas? I mean, difficult areas. And this is something we shall be faced with time and again. I'm sorry, it's not really a question, but I just felt I should add. And lastly, is the issue of what helped me is a book, Women Are from Mars. Is it Mars, Venus, that book? It has a lot about communication. And I realized that men and women were different, and that helped me. Because for us, we talk a lot, we talk forever. And I realized that these people talk in summaries, the men. So that book helped me strike a balance that I need to also listen. I need to not to interrupt him when he's focusing on his things. So at least I've learned, but I still catch myself talking a lot sometimes. But I don't know. I think it irritates this guy, this Duke of West Nile. But it's something that I have to learn. And I encourage you still to read that book again. It has a lot about communication. And Jude, thank you very much for these areas you've brought up.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Okay, let me just make a comment on that. Thank you very much, Doctor. I'll just make this here. You know, for us men, we don't talk. And I think Dr. could even be knowing this, even all of us. If you look for statistics about suicide, even in this recent past, in the past 8 months, you realize that men dominate those statistics. Out of 10 suicides, you can find maybe about 7 or 6 are actually men. Why? Because men don't talk a lot, like Doctor said. We don't share our issues, but for some reason, God created us in a way that we think that my wife would understand, look at me, and know that I have a problem. Came back, greeted me, and just went to the bedroom. For me, this is actually, especially for women, to understand the body language. What is this body language saying? Why is he stressed? Why is he not saying this? There are times you expect us to say something, you know that we know, but we keep quiet. Why? So that is very, very important. And that book helps a lot, that Doctor has recommended. There's a second person. Claire?
Yes, Jude. Is that all?
Yes, that's all. But you said there was a second person.
Oh, there was someone, Albalin. has a question, please unmute yourself and ask. Albalin,
Hello.
can you hear? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you clear. Thank you. Yes, just similar to what doctor has said, my question is, how would you handle a situation if, say, you're dating someone and you've been having this very good communication, as you said, like, yes, the nonverbal communication, but I mean, this is someone you're still dating, and all of a sudden someone is distant and can't really, like, even if you try to, as you said, we women talk a lot, but even if you try to poke information from them, you cannot really get the information. Instead, someone just pushes you further away. So how can you try to actually interpret the right, because you might, if someone pushes you away, you might actually think, someone is actually maybe in another, having another relation or something, and give you a reason for suspicion. So how would you get to that information, or how would you try to bring this person closer, especially if you have been having very good communication and then all of a sudden it's distant? As you said, you men sometimes don't want to share your problems, but this is something that just happens at the click of a finger. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's like at some point I shared and asked the question, how do you know it is time to walk away? And there are always signals. Now, sometimes the signals are right, sometimes the signals might actually be wrong, but it's something that we need to constantly be aware of the signals. Ideally, it is expected that as we grow in this relationship, as time passes by, as years go by, we become better in each of the things. If it is about communication, as time passes by, we become better in communication, we become better in everything. Now, if instead of becoming better, we are degenerating, we are becoming worse, then there's something that is not right, either on my side or on the other person's side. And it needs a round table discussion to actually find out what the problem is. In my own interpretation, and I might be wrong, degeneration in anything that was fine could be, and I underline that word, could be a sign of reduction in the connectedness that we had in the beginning. We said this relationship is about connectedness between us, between me and you. Now, if these distances start coming, that could be a signal that, you know what, the chain that was tying us is a bit loosening. Or it could actually be that there is I would call a foreign body. There is something now that is making this communication not good. Not that the other person is having someone else, but maybe there is something disturbing him, or there is something disturbing me, and that makes him uncomfortable. But I would really think that the way to sort this out is by openly discussing it and making the person know how this makes you uncomfortable and how this is making you start thinking about many other things that might actually not be true. So it is important that the other person comes out and clarifies what is actually happening. And like we said, it must be physical. Sometimes the phone conversation might not work. I'm not certain whether the person is now in long distance or you're actually still within the same area, but the communication has broken down. If all of a sudden the person goes long distance, it can be understood. But if the person is still within vicinity, but this communication has broken down tremendously, then there are things between you that needs to be sorted out. But that can only be known through face-to-face meeting, so that you iron it out.
Thank you so much, Jude, for that amazing session. So you guys, next is going to be Dr. Mugaga, who is going to be telling us about the medical aspects of our relationships. Did you guys even know that you need to do some checkups just by being together? Did you know? Not just HIV, there is more to it than just HIV and all that. But anyway, we're going to give you some time to relax. Okay, so we're going to play a song for less than a minute. Just stand up, stretch. If you wanted to pick a cup of tea, pick it and We shall be back and we continue with Dr. Mugaga. Don't go too far, okay? Don't leave the meeting, just stay on. We're going to play a song just for you to relax, and then we continue and see which medical checkups you're supposed to do and why. Yeah.
I would like in a special way to thank Jude. Thank you very much, Ovgalo, online Ovgalo. Thank you so much for enriching us with that wisdom. God bless you, and thank you for the answers in the questions, and some which are in the chat. Maybe you can continue answering them. Thanks to Dr. Monica and the Duke for joining in. Thank you for the addition, and we look forward to a very beautiful day today. Those who joined us after, you're very welcome. I see Joseph, the Mangenis, the Ngonzis, the Tuhaires, all of you, you're very, very welcome. Please feel at home, go stretch, and we shall be back for the next session in a few minutes.
Need a professional logo for your brand?
Yes, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for that. Like I said, next we are having Dr. Mugaga, who is going to talk to us about medical aspects of our relationships. Before he starts to speak, Dr. Mugaga is an obstetrician and gynecologist at Luwaga Hospital. He serves as the health in charge at Busiro County, Uganda Kingdom. He's a managing director of St. Joseph's Hospital in Wakiso. He's married to the beautiful Nantege Rose and a father of 2, Shalom and Gideon. So you guys can trust the information that he's going to give us because he has been in the relationship, he has married the beautiful